Eat your makeup. It's John Waters.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to see so many of you. And if I may, I'm just curious, how many people in this room have read Carsick? Okay, good.
Good. Potential sales.
I read it myself just in the past week, and it's probably the most fun I've had reading a book this year.
Thank you.
This book is like watching a John Waters movie.
An old one.
Yeah. So tell me the premise.
The premise is really that I was just going to walk out of my front door in Baltimore and hitchhike to my apartment in San Francisco. But before I left, I decided everybody was saying, what's it going to be like? And they were really nervous about it. So I started to be excited and worried because the fantasy of hitchhiking is always dangerous and sexual. So I thought, well, I'll think up the best things that could happen. So I wrote 15 fantasy rides of the best. And then the worst that can happen, which obviously when you're hitchhiking is diarrhea and getting murdered. And after I did that, I did the real trip. I could have never thought up the fantasies before I did it, but then I did the real version, which was 21 rides in 9 days. And so I wrote the fictional parts before I left. I could have never written them after I had already done it, because the one thing I never imagined was the tedium of standing there for 10 hours and not getting a ride. But that's not as bad as getting murdered by a serial killer that only kills cult film directors and the cast of Rocky Horror.
I was wondering if you came up with the scenarios while you were standing on the exit.
No, I didn't. But that's the way the movie could be, that I was imagining the fantasies while I was doing it for real. No, I did it all before I left. I wrote my death, I think, 2 days before I left, actually.
So we know one of the bad things that happens, and the worst, you mentioned it, you're kidnapped by a serial killer who only kills.
Yeah, because everybody said, well, aren't you worried about getting murdered? And I said, well, to be honest, this is a terrible thing, but serial killers usually kill young women. They don't kill 66-year-old men. I'm not anybody's type. That's one thing I learned. I was looking for a gerontophiliac, believe me. That's the sexual attraction to old people. We call them wrinkle queens. But I didn't get one. Now, in the fantasy chapter, I have lots of sex, and I have bad sex in the bad parts. But in the real life, it only got close once when I almost had to spend the night in the woods, and this trucker said, I'll make you up a bunk. You can sleep with me. I thought, wow, I would have for the book, but it didn't. I got a ride before it got dark.
So who do you have sex with in the good part of the book?
Well, in the good part, I have sex in a demolition derby in the car with the driver, and we win.
And you get picked up by some amazing people, including your favorite porn star.
Well, there is a chapter where I get picked up by my favorite porn star, Johnny Davenport, and then we get raped by an extraterrestrial human being, and then I have a magic anus that then sings a duet with Connie Francis.
And that's in the good part.
Yeah, and my assistant said, I can't tell the difference between the good and the bad as I type this.
So in the bad one, you get kidnapped by the guy who kills cult film directors. You get in the back of the truck. There's Quentin Tarantino's gruesomely mutilated body.
Yeah.
What are some of the other bad things that happen in the made-up bad part of the book?
I get picked up by a gay radical that is poisoning products so straight people will have to pay for doing the electric slide. What else happens bad? I get picked up by a radical raw food person that makes me ill. On the good part, I run away with a circus where I'm on a spinning wheel where they blindly throw hatchets at me, but that would be exciting. I mean, I don't really want that to happen, but for adventure, I would like that, certainly. I find a boyfriend who is a knife salesman. I had a knife salesman boyfriend once, but he was unsuccessful. This one is successful. Because when I met this guy, I said, what do you mean you're a door-to-door butcher knife salesman? He said, yes. I said, who would let you in the house? What housewife is home in the day? Who is it? I'm selling butcher knives. And he said, yeah, it didn't work out so well. Yeah.
I think the worst thing that happens is when you're picked up by a guy who has an enormous goiter on his neck.
Well, I have fear of goiters. And my assistant said, that is ridiculous. Goiters do not spread. But in my book, I catch a goiter, and I look in the mirror and think, oh my God. And it starts getting bigger and bigger, and then it explodes in one scene. And there is goiter juice. Yeah.
I
said the worst, but I say I'm going to write the worst. Don't give me those words unless I can do it. Yeah. And then I get also, what a terrible other thing. My favorite thing is I get kidnapped. This is the most bookish thing. By an insane librarian that only collects uncollectible books and takes them to their alternative readers. And she's been fired from every library by having a porno parody thing in the public schools with children showing clitty, clitty, bang, bang.
And she basically procures for a certain kind of fetishist.
The fetish readers, the collector that only wants mass market paperbacks done by famous artist covers that have been ripped off to be returned. That's an obscure collector.
No, of course, unsurprisingly, one of the things that happens throughout the good part is you always get picked up immediately.
Always get picked up immediately, which in real life never happened. And I'm an early control freak riser, so I think I get dumber as the day goes along. So I get out there at 6:30 every morning. I never got a ride till at least 11 o'clock. And my assistant said, why are you waking up? People that pick up hitchhikers don't get up early. And it's something I learned. Poor planners pick up hitchhikers. They get up later in the day.
And, you know, frankly, I mean, in the real journey, just this waiting sounded terrible.
The waiting is also, it makes you really ugly. I'm telling you, I needed so much moisturizer. I look like a Walker Evans photograph. And at the end of Pink Flamingos, they're always joking, saying, let's live in gas station lavatories. It'll make us much filthier. Well, I was living in gas station lavatories, and it didn't make me feel that happy at 66. But I would go into the bathroom and think, well, I said to them, I would whine to my assistants on the phone. And one day I stood there for 10 hours, and I said, I have to drink my own urine now. And because I really ran out of water. I didn't really have to do that. But I had to walk back into town through this with a junkyard dog after me, and like, it was really, and then it was so embarrassing going to the Taco Bell and use their bathroom, and all I could remember is I met Lana Turner, and she was an early backer at Taco Bell. I thought, I hope her estate gets a nickel from this, as I was in the Taco Bell bathroom washing up and brushing my teeth. So pitiful.
So logistically, here you are, you're actually hitchhiking across country. First question really is why? Why did you say
why? I had a book advance, you know, and one main reason, yeah. And I must admit, though, I never cashed it. I mean, I put it in the bank, but I put it in a special account. I didn't spend one penny till I got there in case I chickened out and had to give it back. And I must admit, I never was going to chicken out, but on the third day when I would wake up in that crummy motel room and just hear that dull roar of traffic, which is the soundtrack for the rest of my life in my brain, I would think, am I really doing this? You know, it would kind of shock me when I'd have to walk down to the lunchroom and try to make eye contact with very grim truckers who were not porno stars and who just stared at TV and never, you know, and then in the one hotel, they were really mean to me. The woman said, I was wait outside. Sometimes I'd go in the lunchroom with my sign thinking somebody'd say, oh, it's John Waters. Would you like a ride? That never happened. And so I'd sit outside sometime and then I'd hold my sign up if I saw a car leaving the parking lot. And the manager came out and said, if you show that sign one more time, I'm calling the police. And I said, well, that man looked like he was the type that would have picked me up. She said, that was my husband.
So you did get picked up pretty early by a young man who really sort of becomes he's kind of the last person you would expect.
Well, we did have a bromance. He was totally a straight guy. He was a 19-year-old Republican elected official in Millersville, Maryland. And he was on the way to get his lunch at the subway and in his mom's Corvette. And it was pouring rain. I was drenched. He picked me up. He had never heard of me. I told him I'd never heard of any of the movies, knew absolutely nothing about me. We just kept talking. He drove me to Ohio, which is 4 hours away. His parents are freaking. You Google me, it's not pretty. from a parent's point of view. Friend of the Manson family because of my friend Leslie Van Houten. I just won the Gay Man of the Year award. Made the most repulsive movie ever made. You know, it's really like a parent's nightmare. And he drove me all the way there and then dropped me off. And then he kept texting me and I got stuck in Ohio. Ohio was the worst. And then it was really far. I got stuck in Kansas again. He kept saying, I'm going to come get you. And I'm like, yeah. Get a ride in Kansas, a really long ride. He says, I'm on my way. I've been driving 48 hours at 80 miles an hour, and he picked me up in Denver. He finally caught up to me. He was great. Then he told his parents he was there. I thought there was going to be an Amber Alert, really, but he was an adult. And then we had a great time. It was like a bromance, and his friends were texting him saying, way to go, you're with a gay man in a hotel? Oh, great, Brett. He's like 20, you know. And we check in hotels and people are like, hey, John, get lucky, huh? You know. And, but it was totally innocent. And we just laughed the whole way. What kid? I would have done that. It was an adventure. He went to go across the country. We had a great trip. And then when we finally got the second time, I said, well, this is going to be too easy, so I'm going to get out in Reno, and I'll just give you the keys to my apartment in San Francisco. Go stay there. He said, all right, I'm going to tell my mother about it. I said, well. And he did, and he said there was stunned silence. And then she said, would you just say out loud on the speakerphone what you just told me so your father can hear that? But it was totally innocent, really. And then he stayed in San Francisco. And even after the book, he stayed 3 days. Then he had to drive all the way back alone. But he was great. And I've seen him since. He didn't run for office again. He moved out his mom. He looks great. He's got a new, beautiful, smart girlfriend. So I think it gave him confidence. We had a great time together. He did interviews. He did an interview with the New York Times. But I heard him doing an interview with his hometown paper when he was at my apartment. And he was saying, oh, we've just been shopping, going out to eat. I said, do you realize what that sounds like? Oh, he just started laughing.
You also got picked up by, your cover was kind of blown pretty soon because you did get picked up by some people who recognized you.
I got picked up halfway by Here We Go Magic, a great independent rock group. And they tweeted it. I said, of course you can do whatever you want. It's your car. And they were shocked at how fast the story got picked up and went all over the country. It was like in every paper ever. And I still never said it was true. When they called my office, I felt like Henry Kissinger. No comment. But I never said it was true till I actually got to San Francisco, and then I gave an interview with the New York Times about it. But it didn't help me, because once they dropped me off, yeah, everybody in the world knew where I was hitchhiking, but I didn't know where I was. You forget, when you're standing on an entrance ramp, you know, half a mile before that, there's a sign saying exit 68. There isn't a little marker right there where I stood before the sign saying it's illegal to come down here. I stood right before that sign, and there is no marker for hitchhikers to tell you where you are. I didn't know where I was. And besides, they might know I'm hitchhiking, but that doesn't mean they're in that state or anywhere near me. So it didn't really ever help me except once when I was stuck in Kansas, and then I had to hang around this rest area, the kind with no machines or anything, but there was no one there, so it was just me in this empty parking lot. So if a person would come in, I'd run up to the bathroom like such a pervert when people would come out from having to take a dump or something, and I'm standing there like this. Could you give me a ride with no one else? It was really creepy. And people were pissed off, but no, get away like this. Like, they were horrified. I would have been too.
I love when you picked up the band, when the band picked you up, they were actually fighting over whether or not it was really used.
Yeah, they said he'd never wear that hat. And I said, you didn't see the logo. It said scum of the earth, which was not a smart thing to wear when you're hitchhiking. That's the name of a movie, by the way. But when people would see it, I guess in the Holiday Inn lunch area, it wasn't the best way to get a ride. But I tried to dress conservatively. But I look like I'm homeless anyway, just...
Well, and people did. And, there's actually this very sweet moment where someone insists on giving you money.
The second ride, a farmer, this really nice farmer, we pulled over, he took his wallet out and gave me $10. I thought, does he think I'm a hustler? I'm old, I might be $20 though. And then I felt I have to give a lap dance. I didn't know what he was doing. What do I have to do for this 20? But it was... To me, and then he was so kind that he was doing it. It was really moving. And another day, I was standing on a ramp, and this woman came over to me with two little kids. And sir, take this money. She really thought I was an old homeless guy. And I was. And I wouldn't take it, and then she wouldn't leave till I took it. So I did take it, and I gave it to somebody else. But still, I felt like, why don't you give her $500? You know, I felt bad when she left, but it was really generous. People were kind and generous. And most people, and there's some people I would say I was hitchhiking, and they go, no, they say, what do you do for a living? And I say, well, I'm a film director. And I could say, they go, and I'm Jackie Kennedy. Yeah. Because, sure you are.
So how has hitchhiking changed from when everyone used to do it in the 60s?
I don't know. As I say, everybody over 50 has hitchhiked and would never do it again. Everybody under 30 has never hitchhiked and wants to, but is afraid to. It is the same. When I was young, it wasn't bad to hitchhike. I went to a Catholic school. Everybody hitchhiked home with lacrosse sticks. My parents expected me to. They didn't think it was bad. The same perverts were out there. You just said yes or no if you'd done your homework. I mean, to me, everyone gets propositioned when you hitchhike. Big deal. That's part of it. You say yes or you say no. So what? I've picked up a hitchhiker and had sex with him. So, and I've hitchhiked and had sex with a person that picked me up. Not recently. But
that was my next question.
The last time I picked up a hitchhiker was in Baltimore, and it was about 5 years ago, and it was in the daytime, and he jumped in the car and started huffing glue. And I said, well, make yourself comfortable. He said, want some? Not on Tuesday morning, maybe Friday night. But he huffed the glue and got out. It was all right, really. I guess he just needed real estate, you know, for that hour or that half hour.
So were there commonalities in the people who picked you up? Is there a type?
I'm sorry, I have an ear infection. Don't worry, you won't catch it unless we have oral relationships. A-U-R. I'm sorry, what?
So is there a personality type, do you think, the kind of person who picks up hitchhikers?
Well, they're kind people, the people that pick up hitchhikers. They want to talk, they like to hear people's stories. And the men that pick me up, I would all say, were heterosexual. I don't think a gay person picked me up. And they all praised how much they loved their wife and how smart she was. The women were all smart. Everybody was, the men I felt had reinvented themselves. They had been at one time, maybe had trouble with drugs or the law or something, but they had beaten that, and their wives were a big part of beating that, and it was their second wife. So I always, because they probably got married very, very young, I always say to all the women I know, said, I can never find a straight man. Go hitchhike on Route 70. They're filled with them. And they like women. Yeah. But you'll be breaking up a happy marriage. You got to move there early and then be the second wife, and you'll find happiness.
There are a couple of women who are really the heroes of your book, and they are your staff.
Oh, yeah, my staff, who really bore the brunt of it. And they were really horrified that I was doing this. They couldn't talk me out of it because, you know, I said, well, who's going to pay all year? I got to get a job here. So, but I did talk to them at all, and they did a huge amount of research before we left about because in the fictional parts, it still is true where the cities are. They do have a jail. It's all could definitely happen where there is a demolition derby there, all that. They did a huge amount of research before we left, and I whined to them every day on the phone. There was nothing they really could do to help, but they had backup plans in case stuff went wrong and everything. And so they were a big part of it. And even after the book, both my assistants are really good editors, copy editors. And so I turned in my 10th draft of the book, before. So they were really helpful and everything. So there were definitely characters in it because they were my only people I talked to every day. And I'd have to call them at night, because you can't be getting in a car doing business, checking your emails and booking films, while you're hitchhiking. That's bad manners, really. And being a hitchhiker is like being a phone sex operator. The longer you keep them on the line, the longer they'll take you. So you keep talking, and you let them set the rhythm. If they want to tell you stuff, you listen to their story. I would much rather. I discourage talking. I have to do interviews for my job all the time. But I wanted to hear their story. I didn't want to do the show business. Nobody asked me what's Johnny Depp like. These people weren't, even if they knew, were not interested in hearing really about celebrity stories and everything, which was kind of really refreshing.
Yeah, it is refreshing.
Yeah.
I was wondering about, so they outfitted you with a tracker, basically, right? They could see your progress?
Well, Susan, my sister, made me get this thing called a spotter, and I don't think it was so good, because one day she said, well, why didn't it said that I told you have to have it out in clear view. I said, then what good would it do me in an avalanche? And that's how it's advertised. If I'm upside down in an avalanche, well, then why couldn't it figure out when I was in a van? So it was spotty, where the BlackBerry one seemed to be even better, that they had to follow me. But neither tells you an exact location. But they could see when I got a ride, I'd start moving again. And they'd say, oh my God, he's still there. That one 10-hour day, they were afraid to call because they saw I was still there. And then they called and said, is it broken? No, it's not broken. And I'm gonna have to sleep in this chicken coop, because I was in a place that had all chicken coop ads, like 10 different models, like when you drove by on the highway, and I was picking out one where I was gonna sleep that night.
I kind of, reading the book, I kind of assumed that there was a backup, there was a contingency.
There was no backup. Well, technically, I could have called a helicopter and put it on my credit card, yeah. But I didn't do that, right. But no, there was no one following me ever, or no one came with me. There was no, and my assistants don't work on weekends. You know, that panicked me the first Friday. I thought, oh my God. Now, I could call them at home, but they weren't sitting there all day waiting. They were probably praying that they weren't there to not take the call, you know.
There's this moment that I love in the book where you're stuck in Junction City, Kansas. You're outside of there, and there is nothing, and no one is giving you a ride, and you think you're going to have to sleep in the bushes. Yeah. And finally, and you're talking, and you and your assistants are trying to figure out a solution, and finally you're like, find the nearest gay bar.
Yeah, I don't know why I said that. Find the nearest gay bar. Susan said, all right, it's called Excalibur. And it's like, what was I going to do? Excuse me, gay brothers. I never go to gay bars, to tell you the truth. I'm not against them, but what was I going to say? Gay brothers, come help me. I'm 100 miles away. Please come get me. They would have laughed in my face. They wouldn't have believed it. They would have hung right up. But they found it. She found it, Excalibur.
Unfortunately, you got picked up. So
a gay bar in Junction City, which is a military town, might be good. I walked into Walmart there. It was like porno Walmart. It was all Marines, really good-looking ones, still. I thought, get me out of here.
And what was it like to lose that control? You know, you're someone who, I learned in the book, you schedule your candy binges weeks in advance.
Schedule what?
Your candy binges.
Oh, my hangovers I schedule too even. Yeah, and I always have 4 pennies so I don't get more change. That's really crazy. It was good to give it up. The only thing I have the control I didn't give up is that I would never leave Route 70 and then Route 80 because I would be lost. I still didn't know where I was, but I knew it was on Route 70. I knew where it went. So if a driver was ever going to turn, but people were great. They would audition stops when they'd let me off, because the whole thing is where you get let off, because you're stuck there. Like a local ride is your enemy. The cities are the enemy. You got to get let off after this next big city, not before it, because they're all going to that city. So, and people would go sometimes 50 miles out of their way to get me in a good place. Really nice people. They would audition. They would say, they go off the thing, how does this ramp look? And, it's pretty good. And then they get off. Or they'd wait at the end of the day to make sure that the hotel that they dropped me in had a reservation, because it was the only one. People were lovely and wonderful. And it wasn't like, some of them I have no idea where they are to this day. I didn't get their information. The ones I did, the Kansas couple came to the book signing in Baltimore. That was a good story. They came back. They drove by debating. Then they came back and picked me up. They gave me a really long ride. I was with them for a whole day through Kansas. And they said, I wouldn't have known who you are, but I have a gay son who is your fan. I said, let's call him. So they called up, and they said, John, he said, I've been reading online. He's hitchhiking across the country. And she said, hold on. Hi. Which was great. And he came with the parents to the book signing in Baltimore. The Here We Go Magic, I've seen them, had them to dinner. The Kansas couple, the Corvette Kid, I've seen a lot of times. The Marine woman wrote me that she had a baby and gave the middle name John to him in honor of me. So, yeah, they were great. All the people, I wish I had the hackers' information. They were the only kind of outlaw group that I really liked. That I was the only one that smoked pot the whole way. And I thought, I can't get stoned on pot and then be dropped off on the highway and stand there at night on Route 70. No thanks.
So what does?
But I must have been contact. I was sitting right with him. It was like.
You had little cards made up. But what were the cards that
I didn't. This fan had sent me these cards. I had them for years because I said I liked hitchhiking. It was a little thumb, and it said, "Thanks for the lift." And I found them. She never knew I was writing this book or anything. They were. I had them for 5 years, and I found them in my studio. So I took them with me, and every person that picked me up, I gave him that card. So only 12 people got those cards. And I forgot to with one kid, and I put it in the book. If you contact me so I can send you the card. And I even went to the college to do a show near where he was from and said, "Are you in the audience?" And he wasn't. So I guess he doesn't even know there is the book.
So why haven't you picked up hitchhikers since having this experience?
Have I what?
Why have you not picked up any hitchhikers?
I haven't seen any hitchhikers. The whole way going across the country, I only saw one other one. And I said to the driver, "Don't pick him up."
I just want to change the topic a tiny bit because here we are at the Miami Book Fair. What have you been reading?
What have I been reading? My two favorite books this year are the Italian novelist Elena Ferranti. I really love her. I've read all 6 of her books. I'm a huge fan of hers. And nobody supposedly really knows who she is. She's a pen name that she's never revealed her true identity. She's my favorite. And I can never pronounce his name. My Struggle, the 7 volumes, the Norwegian guy. I've read the first 3 that are translated. Come on, where's the 4th, you lazy translators? I was reading them like a patient. They're so good. They're my 2 favorite books this year.
Oh, wow, that's excellent. I had asked you to tell a story that I heard you tell a few years ago. It has to do with books and how to deal with book lovers.
Well, that was the thing I said once it got a huge lot of play. It's even been, actually illegally printed on bags and everything. If you go home with somebody from a bar and they don't have books, don't fuck them. Well, I'm lying. If they're cute enough. The worst thing, and I say this in my show, the worst thing, if you went home with somebody and they were a racist, could you fuck them if they were cute enough? Yeah. You just go la 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 when they're saying that shit. And if you keep it up, shove something in their mouth. What I think you should do this year when you get a book is reward people sexually for Christmas. If they give you a book you like, let them fill you up. If they give you a book by your favorite author, oral sex. If they give you a book by your favorite author and you never read it, analingus. Did you expect that?
I know better than to expect
I've
anything.
gone further with that story. It's been in development for a couple of years since you heard me first say it.
It's ripened with age. It's good. With this particular book, you've made mention of the idea of it being a movie. You mentioned the kid, the Republican kid.
He said, "Who do you want to play?" He said, "Justin Bieber." Right. Well, Justin Bieber would be perfect now. I love him that he's Bizzle. I love it when he's black.
So who would play you?
Steve Buscemi should always play me. Yeah. For years. And I'm sorry, Steve is probably so tired of this story. I know Steve. One year, my Christmas card was him dressed as me. But it still happens on airplanes. Flight attendants will say, "You were good in Fargo." And this is an old joke, but I told Steve this. He said, "They think I'm Don Knotts." But my favorite thing anyone said to me on a plane was recently, this woman was looking at me. I thought, what's she going to say? And finally she said, "Excuse me, are you a magician?" And I was going to go, "Where's your boarding pass?" But I love that she said that. But she thought I had a top hat and a rabbit with me. I get it.
What did he say?
I said, well, some nice people might say that, but that's not really how I make my living. But thank you. I get why you think that.
It's time for tricks from the audience. We've got a Q&A session. It looks like we've got one microphone right there. So, folks, please.
Well, they have to get up. It's a high-profile question.
Do. That's right. So, yeah, maybe that's a pain. If you want to just raise your hand and yell, we'll repeat questions back. No
Shy
questions
audience
from It's
here.
so true.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just yell it. Even though I can't hear you, she will. That's where I went, yeah. Oh, well, no wonder. Yeah. Wow. To me, Kansas was one of the most amazing states to me, though, because no, if you haven't driven through it, it is so long. It is so barren. There's thousands of little baby tornadoes hoping to be noticed. But they're little dust ones. But everywhere you look, no wonder. That Wizard of Oz, they must hate that movie there. But still, it was imagining the weather, how cold it is there in the winter and how hot it is in the summer. It's really an extreme state. So to me, driving across it was amazing to me. It was actually visually almost my most favorite drive. And the Corvette Kid told me when he was following me at 80 miles an hour, 2 tornado chaser trucks sped past him. He thought, oh, great, So I was never actually in the middle of Kansas hitchhiking. And that's why I got that one ride all the way through it. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be standing there. When I was hitchhiking in Kansas, it was twice. It was the beginning of the state, though. It was still getting barren. And the second time it was in that rest area, there was nothing. There was nothing. The nearest city was like 200 miles if you wanted to get a cab even. So, but still, it was, to me, one of my favorite states visually when I was hitchhiking. But yeah, you don't want to be alone there, yeah. And I bet that gas station lavatory you had to sleep on was a lonely night, right?
Hi. I was wondering if you could comment on what you think has maybe changed in American culture, like as to why less people are hitchhiking now than they used to.
I think people don't hitchhike so much now, because of how it's portrayed. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that hitchhiker kept people from ever hitchhiking. I thought he was kind of cute myself. That in so many horror movies, The Hitcher, serial killers, even in my movies, all hitchhiking ends up badly. So it's usually portrayed in a sexual way or a horror way. And to me, I have had not that experience really ever, even in my life. But yes, I encourage local hitchhiking and ask someone to go on a date. Let's want to go on a hitchhiking date, which I did in Provincetown a lot, to this one beach. And it's green. You might meet some new friends. It's not that dangerous, and it's training wheels of adventure. To me, people said, "Aren't you afraid?" I'm afraid at my late 60s to stay home and do nothing. To me, to not see what's going on in the world is much scarier. People my age that say, "Oh, we had it better." No, we didn't. If I was 20, I'd be in my parents' bedroom. They wouldn't have seen me for a week. They've been leaving food outside my door, and I'd be shutting down other governments on my computer, too. Stealing your credit cards. They're having fun.
There was somebody in the back who had their hand up.
Here comes somebody.
Here's someone in the front.
I thought it was great. The hairspray industry, God knows. I mean, first of all, the movie was a hit. Then the Broadway show, who would have ever thought I'd be on the stage winning Best Tony? That paid for my apartment in San Francisco, if you want to know the truth. The third movie, I'm happy with it. It was a total reinvention. That's why it worked. That's why I'm not so sure that Rent or the producers worked, because the new movie of it did the exact play. This was a complete reinvention. It was a big budget, brassy Hollywood musical, where mine was a very opposite. It was a dance movie. That's why it worked, though. I've been paid to write the sequel to that never came out, called White Lipstick. I was paid to do a TV series on Hairspray that has so far not happened. So I'm still working with Hairspray projects, and I want Hairspray on ice. That's my final thing. And then a ride at Disneyland where your hair goes up.
All right. Hey, John Waters.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to know, which is the state where you would never go back to? And which is your favorite state?
I would not go back to any of the states I was in. Ohio, I had the most trouble in, but a cop gave me a ride there. So I thought that was pretty nice. Ohio, I had the most trouble in. I stood there for 2 days out front of this convenience store, and they never would acknowledge my existence.
Were you ever afraid in any state?
I was afraid nobody was going to pick me up, and I was going to be standing there for the rest of my life. But no, I was not afraid ever when I got in a car. And I tell you, in the beginning, you say, well, I wouldn't get in here. I had a story in case I was afraid. I was going to say, look, we're shooting this reality show, and there's a satellite filming us right now, and I have a chip in me, but if you leave me, it's only in this car, you'll get away. That might have worked, But no, I was never really.
What's your favorite state?
My favorite state, as you get, hitchhiking, I remember I got this ride in California, and it was the third to last ride, but when they got to this rest area to drop me off, I could see 50 miles away the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna make it. So that was my happiest moment there, and I didn't have to wait long, and that's what I was going, so this is terrible, but I would play the game of, in rest areas, when people walked out, whether they had to do number 1 or number 2 by their expression, and you could always see how long they stayed in there, which that was. So that was my little game I played to kind of scatological bingo, kind of, while you were waiting to make, it was like counting sheep.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
And I think we just have time for one more.
It'll be fast. Yes. Okay, you're a god of mine, by the way. Yes.
She was talking to you.
You too. You're both gods, little demigods. Okay, I actually had a question for you the last time you came, and I never got to ask. But I've always wondered what you thought about kind of the mainstreaming of trashiness. Like back then, it was Jersey Shore, and I wanted to ask you what you thought about that. But obviously, that's kind of passé.
No. The thing is, I know what you mean. Actually, I've probably been a bad influence because, unfortunately, there's a lot of Hollywood $80 million gross-out comedies that I hate.
Yeah, me too.
But there's some good ones too. And reality TV, I'm not a fan of. I don't think there is such a thing as a reality TV star. I believe that's impossible.
Yeah,
to me, reality TV means that it's asking you to feel superior to them, to look down on them, and to make fun of them. Which I've always said, well, they're making money and you're wasting your time. Who's the stupid one here? But I think it's bad taste. But people obviously like it. I'm not saying they have to agree with me. I never watched Honey Boo Boo, but I don't hate her. Good, I don't know what happens to her. I mean, if that's the new Shirley Temple, well, that's America.
Yay. Well, cool.
Mr. Waters, will you be signing books afterwards?
Sure, we're going to go sign books. I'll even do a picture with you. I'm a whore. It's Christmas.
Excellent. Thank you.